So today I'm going to do a review of the Connors finale, their final episode, actually their final two episodes that aired on ABC this month, May 2025. So first, let me give you a little background information for those who may not be familiar with the show The Connors. I'm sure people have heard of it, but some people may not be familiar with the background of the show and how it got to this point and got to where it got to. So long time ago, there was the show Roseanne, starring Roseanne Barr. That original show was on from 1988 to 1997. And then, a show got canceled. Everybody went their separate ways for many, many years. And then when shows started doing reboots, various shows started doing reboots and such, Roseanne was one of those. So around 2017, 2018, there started to be talk about rebooting the old Roseanne show with the original cast, not bringing in new people or anything like that, but bring in the original cast, and everybody's all grown up now, or older, whatever. Everybody, the kids are grown, and everybody is where they're at now, that type of thing. And instead of it being 1997, it's 2018. So whole cast was on board. Roseanne Barr, John Goodman, Laurie Metcalf, Sarah Gilbert, the whole cast came back, or at least most of the cast, including some of the supporting characters, some of the supporting actors. So that was in 2018, and then they counted that as, so they kind of tacked that on as an extra season of Roseanne, even though it was a complete reboot, decades later. They considered it just an extension of the original show because they were still calling it Roseanne. But then it was very well publicized when Roseanne Barr made some controversial tweets on Twitter. She got herself in some trouble. She got fired from her show. And then a decision had to be made about, well, does the show continue, or does the whole project just get scrapped, or what? What does that mean for everybody else on the show? So I guess because of whatever dealings were happening behind the scenes, whatever legalities, whatever, they couldn't use the Roseanne name. They parted ways with Roseanne Barr, and so the show continued. They can mention her on the show, but they couldn't call the show Roseanne, so they called it The Connors, which is, the character's last name, Connor. It was Roseanne Connor, Dan Connor, that's the Connor family, so they're like, okay, The Connors. It's kind of and then they killed off Roseanne. It killed off her character, which to me, they didn't need, even if, it was too controversial having Roseanne Barr continue on the show. I don't think that they needed to kill her off. They could have come up with some excuse to send her away, because her character was addicted to pain pills. That was, Roseanne needed to have some kind of knee surgery, and she was getting hooked on pills, and so, they could have come up with some kind of excuse, like, oh, she's in rehab or something, not just completely kill her off. They did the thing like the way Valerie did back in the 80s with Valerie Harper. The Hogan family used to be called Valerie when Valerie Harper was on the show, and then Valerie Harper had some dispute with the show, and she was let go from the show, but they couldn't continue using her name Valerie in the title, so they just called it the Hogan family. But they can mention her character on the show, but they couldn't call the show Valerie. So this was a similar thing, and they killed off her character. They killed off her character. So this is a similar thing. On the Connors, they couldn't continue to call it Roseanne, so they call it the Connors. But anyway, so starting in 2018, it came back as the Connors. And so, and I thought the show was, I thought it was good when Roseanne Barr was on there when they first came back with the reboot as Roseanne in 2018. But even after they killed her off, which again, I think was a bit extreme, killing off somebody, they could have just sent her character to rehab, just had her off camera or whatever. But anyway, it is what it is. They killed her off. And, so Dan's character eventually, Roseanne's husband on the show, eventually got remarried to this other character, Louise, played by Katie Sagal. Katie Sagal from Married with Children, and she was on 8 Simple Rules. And but Katie Sagal, who was never full-time on the Connors, but she was always a special guest star, quote-unquote special guest star. But she would, which is kind of interesting because she was Dan's wife. So no, she was not in every episode, but kind of interesting that she didn't sign on as a regular full-time cast member, which I'm not even sure why, but I guess that's another story for another time. But she was always a quote-unquote special guest star. And so the show, The Connors, was on for these past 7 years. And now here it is, 2025. And ABC announces that The Connors is going to have a very short season, just 6 episodes. Last season was a short season also. I think they only did 10 or 12, maybe just 10 episodes last season. So a normal a full TV season is 22 episodes. And they were doing full seasons up until last year for whatever reason. Last year they did about 10 episodes and they were fine. All these seasons, to me, in my opinion, the episodes, the storylines, it's all been fine, even since, killing off Roseanne. I think it's all been fine. I think the stories have been good, basically. Some episodes better than others. Some episodes just okay, just fair. But I think overall, it's been, a good show for these past 7 years. But why the abbreviated seasons, I don't know. Like, why it was a short TV season last year, and why this year was an even shorter one with only 6 episodes, which to me is a little ridiculous. And they knew that the show was going off the air. Now, I don't know whose decision that was. I don't know if it's ABC's decision, because I thought the ratings were still pretty good. So I don't know whose idea it was for the show to go off the air. I don't know if it was ABC's idea, or I don't know if it was the actors just wanted, the various actors on the show just wanted to move on to other projects. I don't know. So I'm not really sure. I'm not sure who thought it had run its course. In my opinion, I don't think it had run its course. I think if they had given it some more time, I think it could have gone another couple of seasons, maybe. Not beyond forever, but it could have gone on another couple of seasons. It could have matched the same time that the original Roseanne was on. The original Roseanne was on for 9 years. I think they could have gone 9 years with this, not just 7 or whatever, not just 7 seasons or whatever, but, and then certainly them abbreviating these past 2 seasons for whatever reason. So I felt like, it feels like they meaning ABC or whoever, the powers that be, rushed the show off the air, and I'm not sure why. But it seems like they just wanted to give them a send-off. Some sort of a proper send off. Like, in other words, not just cancel the show and like, oh, what happened to it? Oh, it's just not coming on, and it's not coming on anymore. Because sometimes networks will do that. They'll just cancel a show and not tell anybody. so I, so they at least wanted to give the show some sort of a proper send off, but to me it felt rushed. So they kind of, wrapped it up as best they could with a neat little bow, so to speak. But I felt like there were a lot of loose ends. I felt like it could have gone longer. I felt like, well, the last two episodes. So ABC aired. They didn't air like one big hour-long finale. They had two half-hour episodes. Like they had like episode 5 and episode 6 in the same night, which was kind of interesting. They split it up, the 5th and the 6th episode, the finale. So they were wrapping things up. But I mean, I felt like the storylines were fine, but they could have done more. They could have given some characters more attention. They could have explained some things some more. They could have wrapped things up better. I didn't care for, okay, when they started the whole thing about, well, because the whole thing about Roseanne's addiction. So let's sue let's become part of some, I guess, big lawsuit against the pharmaceutical company. Let's sue on behalf of Roseanne, who died because of her, well, getting addicted to the drugs, from this pharmaceutical company. And so the way that they did that, I don't like how they had Dan, the husband, they had him kind of just, instead of going to court and really fighting, they had him just take some settlement, and then in the end, so the big reveal in the finale is it's only $700. That was ridiculous. I'm not saying that the Connors should have gotten like, a big, like hit the jackpot like the lottery, which was kind of what happened in the the original Roseanne show, which I won't get into. This kind of poor or almost poor family becoming really rich because they hit the jackpot, which was all just a dream. But I didn't want, I'm glad they didn't do that. Like, oh, they're rich all of a sudden. But the pharmaceutical company could have given them more than just $700. So I just thought that was just a sad ending. So there was that. Like, I mean, imagine if in real life you lost a loved one and you think you're going to get some kind of settlement. I mean, it doesn't have to be like millions and trillions of dollars, but some kind of decent sized settlement. And to only get $700, like that's all they value that person as, your loved one, just $700. So I thought that was ridiculous. I did not like that. So there was that. So it was really sad. I mean, that, and the only good part of the finale was Roseanne's sister Jackie. She became a police officer again. And which in the original Roseanne series, Jackie was a cop for a few years. She eventually got hurt on the job, shot herself or something accidentally, shot herself in the foot or something. It was some ridiculous storyline. And so Jackie stopped being a cop. But then they didn't really know what to do with her character, because I think her being a cop, it gave Jackie, whose character always had a certain amount of low self-esteem, it gave her a purpose. It gave her, I mean, yes, it's dangerous being a police officer, but it also gave her a purpose, and she felt like she was doing a good, important job. And she just really struggled. Her character really struggled after that. Her character struggled before that. Her character struggled after that. She even got involved with some abusive guy. Some boyfriend of hers was beating her up. I mean, it was just stuff like that. So Jackie never she she never found she found work, but she never found a job that really made her feel really good and valuable. When they came back as Roseanne the reboot and then the Connors, they had Jackie be a quote unquote life coach, but that didn't last long because that was kind of laughable because of the fact that, well, Jackie can never get her own life together, so how can she be a life coach? How can she be helping or mentoring others? So it was, when her own life wasn't quite on track. So she stopped being a life coach and they had her go back to the old family business, which was to run the diner, the lunchbox, they called it. So she was doing that, but I mean, she was kind of happy to do that, but it still didn't give her the same fulfillment as or satisfaction as being a police officer. So then, yes, in her older age, she decided to go back to being, when I say older, I mean probably in her 60s, but still in good shape. Decided to go back to being a police officer, but she had to really, really, of course, get herself in even better shape and, physically and mentally and psychologically and everything. And so, yes, so getting back to the finale of The Connors, Jackie became a police officer again. And it was a really happy moment. It was really happy. I was really glad for her. I was really happy for her because she really wanted it. I mean, and even though it's a dangerous job being a police officer, but it gave her a purpose and she really wanted it. So that was about the only good, really good thing to come out of the finale. I mean, and then as far as the other characters, they they didn't really give them the attention that I thought they could. I think they could have done more with Becky and her boyfriend, who was played by Sean Astin. They could have done more with that. They could have done more with Sarah Gilbert, who kind of became the lead on the show. Kind of after Roseanne Barr's departure from the show, Sarah Gilbert kind of stepped up as kind of the lead as far as female on the show. And but even with that, they didn't. They could have done more as far as in the finale with her and her husband, played by J.R. Ferguson. Her husband Ben. They could have done more with their story. They could have brought back DJ, Becky and Darlene's brother. That's Dan and Roseanne's son. DJ was on the Connors for the first several seasons, but then the show let him go because, I mean, just like in the original show, they never gave DJ too much to do. And they let Michael Fishman go because I guess they couldn't find much for him to do, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, they could have given him more to do, and they could have certainly brought him back for the finale. Him and his daughter, his character, DJ, has had a daughter on the show, but they had let her go a few seasons back when they let him go. Well, they let him go first, I think, and then I think they let the daughter go the next season. So, like, she was just staying with the family. Like DJ was off somewhere. I don't know. It was ridiculous. But they let DJ and his daughter. The character's name was Mary. Just no mention of them. And as far as I recall in this finale, I don't even remember them even mentioning them even in the finale. Much less having them come back, at least. So, make a final appearance. So there's that. So I think there were a lot of loose ends, and it felt like everything was just rushed. Not that it was a bad episode. It's just not that the finale or even the last two episodes kind of wrapping things up. I don't think that they were bad. The last 2 episodes were bad episodes. I don't think the finale was a bad episode. I just think I think the whole season should have been longer than 6 episodes. I think they could have covered more ground. I think it could have even come back for altogether another season or two. Like the show could have just continued. But if they were going to cancel the show, okay, cancel it, but give it more time to wrap things up for all of the characters. I didn't like what they did with the whole lawsuit, how that was handled. Lawsuit or the settlement for Dan and the family. I don't like how that turned out, because it was just really sad. And again, I'm not saying the family should have gotten rich off of Roseanne's death, off the character's death, but certainly get more than $700 from the pharmaceutical company. And like I said, the best part was Jackie becoming a police officer again. That was the only really, really, interesting part. But, this is just my opinion. I could say more about it, but I'm trying not to make this post to this review too lengthy. So bottom line is, if I had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 5, like if I had to give it a certain number of stars, I would give it a 3. The final episode, the Connors finale, I would give it a 3 out of 5. In other words, it was pretty good, but it felt rushed. It felt like they didn't tie up all of the loose ends. And I didn't like the direction that they went in part of the episode, but then I liked some of the direction. I didn't like some of the direction as far as like that settlement business, but then I did like where Jackie got her old career back. Yes, she's older. Yes, she's in her 60s or whatever, but she can do the job. Or, she's confident enough that she can at least try anyway. And it made her feel good, and it helped, and it's going to help her self-esteem and all that. So that is my review of the Connors finale. So in my opinion, 3 out of 5 stars. It was I give it a fair rating, a fair finale. But again, this is just my opinion.